United Nations Guyana Resident Coordinator, Acting, Mr. Gabriel Ball, Representative Acting of UNICEF Guyana and Suriname, Ms. Rosemary Benjamin Noble, Deputy Chairperson of the Rights of the Child Commission, Mr. Andre Gonzalez, CEO of the Rights of the Child Commission, representatives of the UN agencies, other distinguished guests, and most importantly, my peers, welcome to International Youth Day 2025. International Youth Day is a moment when the world stops to recognize the contributions, creativity, and leadership of young people. Spearheaded by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, it shines a spotlight on our role in driving change in every corner of the globe. This year, under the theme Local Youth Actions for the SDGs and Beyond, we are celebrating the fact that change begins right where we are, in our homes. Over 65% of Sustainable Development Goals targets are linked to local governance. That means our role as youth is not just important, it is absolutely necessary.
In our beautiful country, Guyana, we have proven time and time again that we are not just leaders in waiting, we are leaders in action. Through initiatives focused on climate advocacy, gender equality, mental health awareness, inclusion, and entrepreneurship, we are actively working to align national SDG policies with the practical realities faced at our community level. Today's forum is about us. And thanks to UNICEF and the Rights of the Child Commission, we can share ideas, learn from each other, and strengthen partnerships that will help us to drive change, both locally and globally.
To begin, it is my privilege to welcome our first speaker for the morning, Ms. Rosemary Benjamin Noble, the Deputy Chair of the Rights of the Child Commission. Ms. Benjamin Noble is a respected advocate for the protection and promotion of children's rights in Guyana. She has dedicated her career to ensuring that every child is given a voice and a fair chance. And today she brings a wealth of experience to our celebration.
Chairpersons, UNICEF resident representative, members of the diplomatic corps, officers of UNICEF, commissioners, CEO and staff of Rights of the Child Commission, child rights ambassadors, and all special guests and invitees today. Thank you so much for being here. All protocols are observed. Good morning all. Today we celebrate International Youth Day. I'm very pleased to be making these remarks on behalf of the Rights of the Child Commission, and we must state very early that our partnership with UNICEF is one that we at the Rights of the Child, or RCC as we call it in short, treasure. So today is a good day for us. I would also like to say that your presence here is heartening because it is a demonstration of interest and commitment to participation in a forum which seeks to consult you, young people, and give you a voice on matters which directly impact your well-being and future as young persons. The theme for today in and of itself sets a tone for your discussions and decisions. Local youth actions for SDGs and beyond. What I discern from this apt theme is that your goal must be to determine what actions have been taken and what more you require for there to be achievement of the SDGs. While there are 17 SDGs which came out of the UN Sustainable Development Conference and then the launching of those goals in 2015, a focus on those closest to your development and future can be focused on But, and I wish to emphasize this, you must also consider what more needs to be done so that there is sustainability. Improvement in all of our lives comes from being able to hold on to and build on what we have. There must not be contentment in remaining stagnant. We must be able to achieve the SDGs as a country and as a people, and to make them part and parcel of our existence in ongoing fashion. Therefore, while 2030 is the year identified for attainment of all SDGs, our eye must be always on the ball, so to speak, for the years thereafter. And why? You will still be here. Many of us will still be here. But there are others, and we must always remember this, there are others to come and who are already coming behind. In all that you do today, remember the 5 Ps: people, planet, prosperity, partnership, peace. The order does not dictate importance. These words encapsulate what the SDGs are all about. All are of equal importance. And when we talk about children and young people, we also talk synonymously with equality. And may I respectfully point out that these goals are not lofty. They are practical, grounded in realism, and are reasonable, and they are reachable. The SDGs are in sync with the conventions, and for our purposes today, the Convention on the Rights of the Child must be kept in mind, because that's the whole purpose for the work of the RCC. And these articles from the CRC are important. I'll just quickly run through a few. Article 2, non-discrimination. The SDG to go with that, of course, would be peace. Because, of course, once you have equality and no one is discriminated against, no one has a basis for complaint. Article 3, the best interests of the child. The SDG, gender equality, being one of the aspects that broadly covers that. Article 6, the right of a child to survival. SDG 1, no poverty. SDG 13, climate action. Without a clean environment, there can be no useful living, no purpose for us being here at all. Article 12, the right to express oneself and be heard, and for such as today's, very, very important. And of course, the article quality education and the right to education, and the right to good health. SDG 3, good health and well-being. Today is the day to focus on the SDGs and caucus and discuss, share perspectives on actions which can tangibly drive us towards achieving the goals set. SDG number 17 speaks to partnership in all that we are doing today. Unless we listen to each other and fully participate and partner, not very much can be achieved. You are the change makers, you have youth on your side, full productive years ahead. You advocate, lend your voice, educate, continue to be educated, bring along others with you. And remember the words in the theme, and beyond. Not just for recommended actions beyond 2030, but the human resource component which will ensure sustainability. So celebrate your day, International Youth Day, while ensuring that you make the most of today. On behalf of the Rights of the Child Commission, I salute all children and youth today. May you have fruitful and respectful deliberations. We look forward to what will be shared today, and RCC pledges to do its part to provide support going forward. Our child rights ambassadors are here and will be making their important contributions. Thank you to UNICEF, our perennial and treasured partner. Break a leg today, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benjamin Noble, for those inspiring words. Next, we have a special artistic performance, a poem written and performed by one of our talented youth participants, Ms. Akila Obumula. This piece reflects the spirit of youth empowerment and the theme of today's event.
Dear youths of today, as the old one looks down upon us, ignorance mistaken for wisdom, them youths they begin to say. Them youths throw plastic to the roadside and waste water till the well runs dry. Them youths are like clouds, airheaded and simple-minded. Them youths today are far too phone addicted. All they do is chase smoke and a bitter taste. Them youths like to act way above their age. Look at all the food these youths does waste. They should really know their place. But my fellow youths, if care was a hormone, is it not planted in every seed we've sown? Who starts protesting some campaigns? The youths of today. As us youths discuss our environmental state, let the old ones fret and fuss. Dear youths, we are a tide, waves of prosperity and educational minds, washing away the harmed soil from those before us. Not letting our culture turn to rust, our success is a defiance, our freedom a speech of disrespect. Us youths, alike clouds, have a silver lining. Challenges, yes, and faults are sure, but like our oil, we are refining. We are a stage of empowerment, healing our environment, continuing as a tide, flowing strong and free. Dear youths of today, we shape what is to be. Written by Aquila and Charlotte Bella Muller. Thank you so much.
But really, it's a pleasure and it's a privilege to be with you all here today. You as people, you as advocates, and knowing that you're just not just here as individuals, but you're also representing different organizations that you're a part of. And today, of course, it is a special day looking at the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and how you as youth leaders are part of that. And of course, I do need to recognize the Rights of the Child Commission, our dear partner, and we are really together, we're collaborating to make youth and child participation a lived reality, to systematize it, because that's how it should be in every country. And of course, youth-led organizations and young people need to be part of that. And so every year, the global community takes this day of the Youth Day to look at the challenges, but also the aspirations of young people. And we shouldn't just look at that as sort of the adults and the experienced people that we believe have a lot of wisdom, to actually start with your ideas and your aspirations. Because I always feel if an architect wants to build a house for someone, they better talk to the person that will be living in that house later, right? So how would we want to construct the future of a country for those who will live in that country the longest, meaning the children and youth, without actually properly consulting with you? So this is really not just an annual reflection, it is just fundamental to get it right for you. So this year's theme, I think, could not be more timely, right? The SDGs, they were negotiated and written in international halls, but where we bring life to them and where the rubber hits the road is in countries like Guyana, and it is in communities, and it is in your circles of influence. And so it is about global goals, but it is also about local impact, and you are part of that, of course. And in Guyana, we're privileged, of course, to witness this transformation firsthand from youth entrepreneurs and those that are pioneering the green innovation. So we give recognition to the Benitas and Sufains, to student advocates who are normalizing conversations around mental health, like Andrew, and to young leaders in indigenous and hinterland communities demanding equitable access to services and to hold local leaders accountable. And I know that in the next couple of days, you will be hearing a lot more around these young superheroes that are driving this work forward, and with whom you need to all join hands as much as you can. And so as UNICEF, we really stand proud, shoulder to shoulder with you and with this movement. And we're guided by this belief that the right of every child and young person is to be heard, is to be included, so that it can be part of crafting the future, but in the present, right? So yes, the SDGs are what we call a human rights imperative, but it is just also simply a smart strategic investment. If we really give life to all these 17 big goals and what stands behind them, and I shall add in Guyana that is blessed now by an economic situation where very soon the the lack of resources cannot be an excuse not to act. Well, then the future can be very bright and inclusive for boys and girls, and for young women and young men like yourself. And I heard earlier already the statistic that over 65% of these goals of SDGs require youth action and child participation. And so that is really a call for implementation at the local level, with you and through you. And so it's a wake-up call to let leaders know that you guys and girls, you boys and girls, are not just passive recipients of sort of aid, and that adults should tell you what to do, but you're active solution makers and builders and designers and engineers and implementers. So we are committed at UNICEF to continue to do what we can to empower you and to make yourself heard. And I think it is important to remember that we also need to continue to build strategic partnerships with government, civil society, with think tanks, with academia, and among yourselves, right? To make sure that we're all pulling the string into the same direction. I should also add the private sector, right? Lots of actors there who need to help around child rights, business principles, and so on. A lot can be done. But it's important that youth action and youth-led strategies need to be more institutionalized. It shouldn't be just UNICEF, bringing us together in a nice room and they kind of preaching to the converted and not have certain decision makers not as, right? So it needs to be institutionalized in law, in policy, in practice. So as we mark today's International Youth Day, let us reaffirm that the SDGs that we see there in the lovely cubes are not just abstract goals, they are really tangible community commitments in Guyana and elsewhere across the world. And they're youth goals, and so they're also your goals. All right? So together, let us build this future. The United Nations system stands behind you, just like the RSCC, and I know many, many others. But feel empowered to take action and to be loud around the ideas that you want to see fly. So thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to the passion and the energy and the ideas that we will get out of these 2 days. And don't be shy, be loud, make yourself heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bockles, for that empowering speech. And to close our opening segment, we welcome Dr. Kim Eva Dixon, the United Nations Resident Coordinator acting in Guyana. Dr. Dixon is a representative of PAHO WHO and comes with a wealth of knowledge, having worked in several UN agencies. But today, she will speak to us in her capacity as the UN Resident Coordinator. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dixon.
It's an honor to be with you today to commemorate Youth Day 2025. This is a day we not only celebrate youth, but reflect on your vital role in shaping our present and future. Now, the last time I celebrated International Youth Day was about 5 years ago. I was in Sierra Leone, in Africa. And we didn't come to a hall, no. We went out on the streets and we did a flash mob. You guys know what a flash mob is? So we were there, we were all dressed up and walking around as normal, and next minute we started dancing. I really enjoyed that day. But the whole theme around the flash mob and the whole theme about being able to do it and feel free was be bold. That was our theme of the time, be bold. So I'll just encourage you today that in whatever you're going to discuss, whatever you're going to plan, be bold. Be bold, because the future is yours. This year's theme is local youth action for the SDGs and beyond. And it reminds us that global progress begins in local communities. As the UN Secretary General affirms, young people are leading the way across the world. The United Nations is committed to working with and for youth through our Youth 2030 Global Strategy. So we have a 2030 Global Strategy for the UN, and we are committed to working through that. We've now started a new ambitious phase 2, which builds on the progress which has already been achieved and focuses on 6 priorities, which range from empowering youth and accelerating SDG action to unlocking resources and transforming institutional culture. Here in Guyana, youth leadership is real and it's rising. With one of the youngest populations in the Caribbean, young Guyanese are advancing climate action, gender equity, education, mental health, and innovation. They're not just waiting for change, but you are actually delivering change. Youth-led organizations are translating the SDGs into local action. So the 16 SDGs that have been established at global level, we see them being translated right here in Guyana. You're working on clean energy in the hinterland communities, to campaigns for inclusive education, which are bridging the gap between policy and practice. But challenges do remain. Many young people, especially in rural and indigenous areas, face barriers to participation, to mentorship, and to access to resources. And I will add there, and access to services. Inclusion must not be symbolic. It has to be systemic. The UN in Guyana is committed to this effort. We're supporting job creation, education, digital inclusion, green technology, and protection for vulnerable youth. We were proud to support youth consultations ahead of the SIDS4 Summit in April 2024. And this year we welcomed the UN Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs in March. So in March this year, the UN Assistant Secretary General was here. During this visit, he had direct engagement with young leaders as well as policymakers, and he indicated the UN support for national youth development initiatives aimed at empowering youth participation in policy making and sustainable development in Guyana. His visit helped to spotlight Guyana's youth on the global stage. Guyana's leadership as a UN Security Council member, and the UN Security Council has youth as a priority agenda. Guyana is also a co-facilitator of the new UN Youth Office. This positions Guyana as a regional champion for youth inclusion. Today's forum is not just a celebration. It's a space for bold ideas, it's a space for collaboration, and it's a space for collective problem solving. Here, young people, you will work together, you share solutions, you'll inspire peers, and you'll build partnerships that will help to amplify your impact on the ground. Colleagues, partners, and most importantly, young people, we are inspired by what you've achieved. We are committed to amplifying your efforts and working alongside you. Because investing in youth is investing in peace, it's investing in prosperity, and it's also investing in sustainability. Let us leave today not just inspired, but ready to act recognizing youth not as the future, but as partners now. As the Secretary General said, your voices, ideas, and leadership matter. Let us support youth-led solutions and build a more just, more peaceful, and sustainable world from the ground up. So thank you, happy Youth Day, and I'll leave you, I'll just say again, be bold. Thank you.
I'll be inviting your thoughts along the way so you can reflect on how these questions apply to your work and your community. I will start off with our dear Benita Davis. Can you please just explain yourself and tell us who Benita Davis is, how you've contributed to the SDGs, and everything else that we should know? Thank you.
Well, Benita Davis is a young lady that likes cartoons, for those who met me just now. But in terms of the work that we've done, I work with Policy Forum Guyana, which is an environmental NGO. And so over the years, we've done quite a lot with the SDGs, It started in 2017. And we were able to create a game called the SDG Memory Game. So that game was really to ensure that students understand what the 17 SDGs were. Then we went on to focus on specific SDGs. So we had the River Garden Freshwater Board game that Shanae alluded to earlier. That's now in the school system thanks to NSERT and our partnership with the Ministry of Education. Then we did a lot of work in 2017 and 2018 with regards to climate action, so SDG 13. We had youth-led rallies that had over 500 persons. Sufain was there. Some of the persons in this room was also there saying, it's getting hot in here. We need to cool it down and stuff like that were some of the chants you heard on those rallies. Then we went on to advocacy work as well as education. So we created what was a freshwater toolkit to ensure clean water was accessible to hinterland communities. So through that work, we developed a testing kit as well as a storybook called Cal Learns About Fresh Water, which is now translated in Akawayo and Opisian because it was targeting those communities and to help them to really advocate for freshwater protection in their own stead. So Policy Forum Guyana, the work I do is really not to promote myself, but to promote and empower youths to advocate for themselves. So we prepare them with the tools. That's why we create games, we create toolkits, we have sessions with youth. We recently had with the Gender and Equality Commission, we had an advocacy training group. I see some of the girls here. Shanae was also a part of that training. So it's really to empower persons to advocate for themselves is the work that we focus on. Thank you, Shanae.
Thank you very much, Ms. Benita Davis, for that wonderful summary that you gave about your work. I know I've met Benita multiple times. In every change maker, in every room that contributes to change in this country, Benita is there. So thank you very much. I would like to direct my first question to you. From your experience shaping environmental policy, what does a world that truly works for your people look like in the context of climate action?
Okay, so these questions were shared with us prior, right? So I have a pre-prepared speech. So my pre-prepared speech goes like this, that a world that truly works for young people with climate action is a world that ensures that youth voices are not just heard, but also an integral part of decision making. And you've heard Mr. Rockwell talk about it, you've heard Dr. Kim say that as well, that when youths are involved in decision making, the impacts are not just now, but it's the future in terms of intergenerational justice. Yes, that is important. And it's something we must advocate for. But the reality of the situation is, and I'm talking to youths here today, is that you need to equip yourself to be able to effect change. Because we are given these opportunities. We are asked to come to forums like these. We are invited to international conferences that Sufain can attest to. We are invited to rooms where decisions are being made. But if youths aren't prepared to take hold of that opportunity, if they don't read the briefs, if they don't read the reports that I said beforehand, if they don't follow the news that are happening, the international news, things that are going on regionally, locally, as well as international, then they can't effectively participate in these decision-making opportunities. You know, constantly we sit and we say youths aren't included, youths aren't this, youths aren't that. But a lot of youths are, and they just use it as a photo op. So they go to these meetings to take a picture, this person, come and take a picture with the High Commissioner, this or that.
No, let's be real, because you are invited to these events, you are given the opportunity, maybe not everyone, but a few of us are given that opportunity. And in order to make the most of it and for our voices to be heard, we need to prepare, we need to equip ourselves so that when we make our interventions, they are not just seen as, oh, she just rambling, she knows what she's talking about, she has no background. This girl has researched, she understands her constituents, she understands the groups that she's representing, and she's here to make a meaningful impact or intervention into that meeting so that it can be included in policies. I don't want to lecture to the youth, because I know all the youth here, but really and truly these are the things that we need to do. And then to the youths that get to go to these opportunities, when you return to Guyana or you return to your youth groups, this information stays with you. Are you having sessions with other youths that weren't afforded that opportunity to build them up, to empower them? Or are you just self-promoting and you're always the one going to these things? You have all the knowledge and the other youths are left behind. So that is why these things are important. If we are to really effect change and impact climate action, we need to not only make the most of the opportunities we're given, but empower other youths along the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benita, and I do think that was a very important message that needs to be out there. And I'm also grateful that all of you took their time today. You could have been anywhere else. You could have been at Giflan, you could have been home sleeping, but you chose to come here to be in our presence and to learn and take this information back with you in your various groups. So I'm very grateful that you've learned you've heard an important message. I remember one quote that stuck with me. Someone said, because you know young people, we always complain about not having a seat at the table and we always feel like we're excluded. And I remember hearing a quote that said, if there's not a seat at the table for you, bring your own chair. So I would like to encourage you from today moving onward, bring your own chair. Thank you. So now I'll direct another question. Another question to say, Ms. Benito. You've created innovative environmental educative tools. How can youth-led creativity influence national and global climate strategies?
Okay, yes, so Policy Forum Canada, for those of you who are following, we've done quite a few games. So I mentioned a few. We have the Eco Shuffle, which is like Uno. If for those of you like Uno, is environmental Uno, then you have the Eco Snake and Ladder, you have the River Guardian Freshwater Board Game, and recently you have an environmental version to Twister. So there's so much things that we've created in terms of games and making education fun, interactive, and engaging when it comes to environmental advocacy. But in terms of youth and what they can do in advocating and using their innovative brain or mind, is that we need to think outside the box. You might see CYN or GYN having cleanups. You want to have a cleanup too. No, they have their cleanups, let them have their cleanup and support their cleanup when they have it. Come up with something new, come up with something fresh. Maybe you're good at TikTok, maybe you're good at Instagram, maybe you're good at painting, drawing. There's so many things that you as a person, as an individual, are really good at. And you can channel those skills into environmental education, environmental advocacy. For example, I like cartoons, I like games, so all my work is linked to animated videos as well as game-based learning. I'm not trying to do cleanups, I'm not trying to do press release or spoken word poetry or anything like that, because that's not what I am passionate about. I use my thing that I like and then twist it for environmental innovation and activity, and then that is what I would like to encourage you all to do here. Additionally, I don't know if much of you saw, there's a global treaty happening on plastics. So you know we talk about not being invited and all of these things, and should they say carry a chair. So what this artist did, he created a sculpture in front of that treaty in Geneva in Sweden, and it's called the Thinker's Burden. So you have this guy, this pencil wheel like this, and then you have a DNA coming through it. And then over the 5 days of the conference, or the 4 days of the conference, they're dumping plastics. So they're showing that while these world leaders are debating or negotiating what to do about the plastic situation, as time goes by, the plastic situation is getting bigger and bigger, and that was his intervention. He wasn't invited to the conference, he didn't have a platform to speak or to advocate, but he used his technique, his art, and really sent a message to the world that, yes, I'm not in these rooms making the decisions, but I'm outside and I'm putting this on social media as well, so everyone can see and support. So in your own way, your little way, your social media content, Or it could be on the ground having a mob, a flash mob, a dance, poems, so many different things that you can be creative, you can be innovative. Don't limit yourself, even if it's writing stories. There's so much you can do that can really advocate for the message that you want. So think outside the box, be creative, and be bold.
Thank you very much, Denise. That was very impressive how you were able to add how you could incorporate modern technology, modern trends into climate action, into youth advocacy. So that was definitely a very, very good, thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to our next panelist, Mr. King. So could you tell us a little about yourself, the projects you've done, and how you've contributed to the SDGs?
Good morning, everyone. If under the weather, so I guess my voice starts to crack. I'm not nervous, I'm just under the weather. Alright, so as it relates to mental health, I was afforded the opportunity by UNICEF in 2023 to attend a conference in Barbados where I was trained as the Youth Advocacy Guide Champion Trainer. I'm currently the only trained Youth Advocacy Guide person in Guyana. And after completing the program, I was able to train several youths, not 100 as yet, but I'm getting there. One of the main issues that we face would be funding, and most of us can see that. Alright, so some of the programs that we were able to do while I was a young influencer, mental health was one of my main platform, and we were able to create the anti-bullying campaign under the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security back in 2023. We also aided the ministry in launching their 917 campaign, which is a campaign that deals with mental health and also helps with domestic violence. So these are some of the things that we were able to do, myself and the other young influencers. I'm still young in the advocacy area, so yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. What role does youth empowerment and community development play in building a supportive environment for mental health advocacy?
Alright. So we all know that empowered youths become mental health champions, right? Within their communities. And when young people have leadership skills, access to the necessary resources, and a sense of belonging, they can challenge harmful narratives and promote inclusion. Community development from building safe recreational spaces to improving access to education, strengthening social fabrics, and it also makes it easier for mental health advocacy to thrive and to become sustainable over time. Basically saying that once young people have the necessary tools to lead the way forward, they can become champions, in their own spaces. Because something that we are doing currently as the mental health focal point for the Caribbean, we have launched a book. It's called Young Caribbean Minds, and this book was developed by 22 young persons across the Caribbean, and we're all focal points below the ages of 25. And this book is currently on Caribbean Airlines. It's on the American Airlines, United, and JetBlue. So this book consists of real-life experiences faced by the focal points and persons within their communities and the different countries. So the persons who are now having a real-life experience of a mental health trauma, they can actually go through these books and they can find coping mechanisms. For example, when St. Vincent and the Grenadines was hit by the earthquake, when they have the volcano eruptions, all these young people, they do face mental health challenges during these times because they're young. Of course, they're going to panic, there's anxiety. We don't know what's going to happen to our families. We're not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. On the side for Guyana, we don't really encounter natural disasters on that scale. We would usually have flooding, droughts. Yes, we have 1 and 2 wildfires, but we don't experience it the way they do. So it's worse for them to actually experience natural disasters, and they don't have a strong coping mechanisms. You're in your bed sleeping and an earthquake strikes. You don't know what to do. you're told, or stand between poles of your door. What if there's two persons already there? How do you cope? Who do you reach out to? So, giving young people the necessary resources that they need to cope is something that is very big when it comes to mental health.
That deserves a big round of applause. We definitely need a copy of that book. One thing that really stood out to me, another quote that his speech reminded me of, is the saying, empowered people empower people. So thank you very much, Mr. King. I will now hand you over to Ms. Sophia Allen. Every time I hear the word climate change and climate or environment, I think of Sophia. She's always, ready to advocate. She's always ready to educate. Every minute she has a project. You could call Sophia right now and say, hey, let's develop a mental health something. Sophia can already get a proposal in her head already. So she does a very, very good job at what she does. So Sophia, I now open the floor to you.
Good day, everyone. Can you remember my name? Alright, good. I gotta say it again. Alright, so hi guys. From me, I will say that I have dedicated my life to environmental awareness. For those who have not met me, a bit of a background, I went to St. Stanislaus College for 7 years and then repeated at Cape. So, no challenge behind. I did environmental science there at Cape. From there, I was selected due to my grades to attend the first ever Caribbean Youth Climate Activist Conference in 2017. And that experience really, coupled with speaking to for those who are religious, God showed me that my purpose in life is to dedicate it to really advocating for environmental awareness, but not without specializing. So from there I went to UG, I did environmental studies. I currently work at the Environmental Protection Agency. I am a Child Rights Ambassador, UNICEF volunteer, and I am the National Coordinator for the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. So if you doubt my commitment to environment, my record speaks for itself. But what I am currently looking to do my master's in right now is a form of communication tailored to environment. Because I find that we need to get messages across all platforms, all persons, especially young persons, for you to understand. I think understanding it is what we need, because persons cannot join a movement or be a part of a change they know nothing about. So I focus a lot on environmental education, particularly for young people, because the truth is, you are going to more than likely live the longest in this climate crisis, and are you prepared? Just touching before we go to my question on what both Benita and Andrew were saying. Andrew alluded to something that actually has a term, and I want you to write it down. It's called psychosocial skills. The psychosocial skills needed to deal with climate change, right? It deals with you preparing yourself mentally for what is to come. You prepare yourself mentally for the damages that will come in climate change, because climate change is no longer, right, something we can avoid, right, and that is something we need to deal with. Going back to what Benita was saying, the action to skills. I always say to everyone, all roles are important. So even if you see this big landscape of climate action as a daunting thing, some persons said they like to crochet. I met a young lady at a time. She was from India or Bangladesh. You know what she does? She makes saris for activism. Her saris are colorful, painted, sentimental. At a time she did a sari for an entire statue to advocate. So these things, as Benita said, think out of the box. So from the various experiences I had, I really tried to advocate and help young people to find their role and to help you in achieving that. Because even with Shanae, Earlier this year, there was a particular conference that was, I couldn't go, but it was a lovely conference in St. Kitts, bridging human rights and environmental advocacy. I said, Sinead, please go to this. I need you to understand that I see that you like this, and this is a bridge you can achieve. And she did, she went, and she will tell you eventually how it was and how impacting it was for her. So if anybody wants to be a part of the organization, wants to really own in on what you want to do, it doesn't have to be environment, it can be anything. I am here to help you, and I want you to always remember, I'm here to help. I might not reply all the time, give me a call. I have a child, I'm married, I'm only 25, I'm just a girl. But I'm here. So you can go into my question though. Once all y'all, you know me now, but I had a little speed dating thing, but I'm too tired. I didn't able to talk. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Okay, so my first question to you would be, as someone who links child rights and climate justice, how can we bridge generational divides to ensure both issues are addressed together?
Okay, no. The mere fact that we have to bridge it shows a problem. It shows a serious gap within the system. Because if you're going to sit down and address climate action, climate change, which is something that is long term, how can you not consider those who will be there the longest? Right? And I think oftentimes this is overlooked because children are not in the room. Of course, children cannot be in that room sometimes. So what we need to do is to have that advocacy to reach to that point where the policy leaders, the people in charge, cannot ignore this. And that is why we have organizations like the Rights of the Child's Commission, because they are here to speak about the rights of the child. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. One thing, SDG, isn't there? SDG 17? Partnerships. Alright? We need partnerships. Oftentimes when I work, I always work along with either UNICEF, RCC, when I have a presentation to do, to really show you there's linkages. So I, as Nita said, I'm not doing it for self-gratification, I'm doing it for a cause. And oftentimes, if you go with the backing of an organization or a group of persons, your voice is more likely to be heard and considered. I'm not saying you cannot do self-advocacy, because we saw, if you don't know, so write this name down. Greta Thunberg, alright? Her movement started with her. She sat in front of her parliament protesting, skipping school until she was heard. But in Guyana it's a bit different. If you sit in front of parliament, I'm a very realistic person. So when we're speaking of bridging that gap between children being considered when it comes to climate action, that's what you're asking me, right? And long-term climate change, we need to reach to the persons who are in that room. And oftentimes you can do it through established systems. Right? The systems are there, use them. Use UNICEF, use the Rights of the Child, use the ministries, speak to them, send letters. We can reach out, call. Sometimes you have to go in, ministries don't answer the phone. You have to go in. These things can happen. And there's not a youth advisory council in Guyana. That is a good, that is a good way. I don't know how exactly, I haven't found a Facebook page. And even myself, I was looking for them. I know somebody on there. And if you want to reach to them, I oftentimes say, you do not need to, as I said, reinvent the wheel. Once there are systems, use those systems. That is what the Rights of the Child's Commission is here to promote the right of a child. The child has a right to a clean, healthy environment and a safe one. And climate change threatens that. It threatens everyone's life. And in Guyana, being a small island developing state, right over the island, all of us are supposed to know that when it comes to climate change, we are extremely vulnerable. We're the ocean. And what is supposed to happen to the ocean? So what we live on the coast do? Alright? We got a plan. And so we have, who do we speak to if we want to know what is going on with sea defense? Which organization? Do you have to go to see one and protest about that? Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we have to think, really, how can we actively and effectively reach the person that needs to be reached? And we have the system, so let's use those. Alright, that's my advice. If you want to go and protest in the seawall, by all means, I will be here for you too.
That deserves a bigger round of applause. So clearly that's something that stood out to me about reinventing the wheel. And the wheel is there, but the wheel isn't turning. And why isn't the wheel turning? Because it needs grease. And you are the grease. Right? And The Greece, I would say it's young people advocating, because what I noticed, whenever there are issues, let's say child rights are being violated, the wheel is stagnant, nobody's doing anything about it. But when it reaches the media, everyone's talking, oh, what is this commission doing, what is this, and that is when people realize that there was a wheel in the first place. So I think that it's important that we keep track of the wheel, and we add grease where necessary, because we're advancing as a nation, and we have all these technologies advancing and the roads and everything, but what happened to the social issues? What happened to issues that affect young people? We need to ensure, as the world is evolving, young people, opportunities for young people are also evolving, because we're gonna get older. We can't stop aging, but development could be altered or stopped if we do nothing. So we, as young people, as we age, we also want to see our communities, our villages, our country, our region, internationally. We want to see these issues advancing as well. Yeah. So thank you very much for that, Sophia. I will now thank you. Now, lastly, our last panelist is Miss Dr. Loria May Haywood. Laurie. So my first question to you would be, how can youth advocates protect children and the rights of children in the digital age with well advocating?
Thank you. I must say that it is a pleasure being here. I just feel I'm not a youth, but I feel energized just by sitting next to you. In doing my research about youth and this International Youth Day, I noticed that a lot of youth agents and so on have been doing a lot of work with technology and online and social media. And as UNICEF and as a UNICEF representative, it is our goal to ensure that as you do your development work, it's important that you ensure that you put measures in place to ensure that every child, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, every child is protected and safeguarded. So UNICEF has some child safeguarding guidelines. I just wanted to go through some do's and don'ts with you to ensure that as you continue your engagement with children on the ground, you do no harm. That is one of the core principles that we tend to stress a lot. So one of the things that I wanted to stress on first and foremost is that, as I said before, you respect every child. As you do your work, you do not discriminate. You respect every child, regardless of whether or not the child has a disability, whether or not the child is rich, the child is poor, the child is from Region 1, the child is from Region 9. You ensure that every child is given that dignity. Another do that we tend to stress is ensuring that the opinion of every child matters, and that you don't assume that a child wants to say something, you ask them. So every child has that right to express their opinion, and it is important that as you do your development work, you ensure that you engage with children. Another do that I wanted to stress is that in order to safeguard children, you also have to ensure that when you do your development work, you do not do it with a child in an isolated context. It is always recommended that when you go to do your work, you have another adult with you. And this is not only to ensure that you are safeguarding the child, this could also ensure that you safeguard your reputation as well. And one of the things I mentioned as well is that I know that a lot of youth tend to do a lot of work on social media. And I don't know if it is a practice of yours to get consent of the child, but one of the recommended guidelines for UNICEF is that you ensure that once a child is at least the age of 14 and over, you actually ask them for written consent. If the child is under that age, we tend to recommend that you speak with a parent and also get that written consent from the parent. I can remember when I was studying overseas, one of my friends from Ghana complained to me because she tended to see videos and pictures of children in her country, some of them naked, some of them with flies on her face. And one of the things that she said to me was that, in all of my time in Ghana, I never saw children like that before. And one of the things that I wanted to stress with you as well is that you take photographs of children. You ensure that you do so in a dignified manner. You do not take pictures of children who do not have clothes on. You do not take pictures of children, in a sexually suggestive way. So you ensure that you respect the dignity of every child. When you take pictures as well, it is also important, and videos as well, and other social media content, you ensure that you don't perpetuate stereotypes. So for example, you may go online and it might be a typical image to see a woman or a girl cooking, and nothing is wrong with that. But you just ensure that as you take pictures of men and boys and women and girls, you ensure that you capture that entire life story of the child and not just one thing that could perpetuate gender stereotypes. Another do would be, as you continue with your media images, it's important that you ensure that you do not identify the child online. We know that a lot of personal information is available online, and that could put children in a very vulnerable position. So it is important that you use their images with their consent, use video content, but also ensure that you shield their identity. Now, I just have a few don'ts before handing back to you. When dealing with children, it is important that the language you use is very respectful. So avoid the language that is sexual, avoid language that is stereotypical, avoid language that could potentially be abusive. As you know, I think this should be very clear, but I would also want to stress that you ensure that you never engage in any sexual activity with a child. I know that you know that, but I also want to say that very publicly. Every child should be respected, and no child should be subject to any sexual exploitation, abuse, touching, fondling, grooming. That is a no-no. And it is our responsibility, it is your responsibility as youth and as change agents to ensure that every child under your care, every child that you have any influence over is protected. I alluded to this other point before, and it concerns children, operating with children in an isolated context. So at no point should you invite a child over to your home. At no point should a child be with you without an adult that they trust. We are stressing the importance of safeguarding the rights and welfare of every child. As you know, this is an age where we have a lot of bullying online. This is also a no-no, so at no point should you be using your computer or your phone, your social media account to sexually harass a child, to bully them, to call them names. If a child, for example, does not want to cooperate with you or to be a part of your project, that is okay, that is their will, and that should be respected. And the last don't that I have is that this is all according to UNICEF's safeguarding guidelines. You should avoid using children for any illegal activities, because of course it's our goal to ensure that every child is protected and safeguarded. That's all for now.
So much, Ms. Haywood. That was a very in-depth, detailed do's and don'ts. Now that they are aware of the do's and the don'ts, my next question is, given the fact that you already explained to them, what, are the don'ts, which is, you shouldn't touch children, you shouldn't communicate in any sexual manner with children. Now that they are aware of this issue, if an advocate has knowledge of child sexual abuse, so if they are aware that someone else is blaming, what necessary steps should the advocate take in safeguarding the children while at the same time pursuing justice?
That's a very, very important question. One of the things that I've noticed about Guyana is that we have very good laws. Sometimes the laws may not be implemented, but we're working on getting there. But Guyana has a Sexual Offences Act, and we have a Protection of Children Act. And in the Protection of Children Act, it covers reporting. So anytime you see a child who you know is sexually abused, or you think that they're at a risk of abuse, there are 3 persons according to law that you should report to. First and foremost, you should report it to the police. I know that in some instances, persons may not necessarily have trust for the police, but if there's not a police report, it would be difficult for that child to get justice. So you should report the matter to the police. You should report the matter to the Child Care and Protection Agency. When we do our work, we tend to push for the 914 number. I don't know if anybody ever heard of the 914 number, but you could use that number to report abuse. So one of the ways that I tend to trying to get persons to remember the number, I would say, what is 911 for? 911 is for the police. 912 is for what? 913? And then 914, it's just the next number. So you use the 914 number if you want to report abuse. And the third person that you could report to under the law would be a probation officer. So it is your responsibility to report any issues of abuse or any concerns that you may have. I also wanted to touch on the issue of confidentiality. I know that sometimes some persons may say, you know, I have a secret to tell you, this person abused me, this person touched me. Now, there are certain secrets that should never be kept. And it is your responsibility when dealing with a child victim, or even if the victim is not a child, you should be transparent with them. You tell them about the serious nature of the issue, and you tell them that, you know, really, it is my responsibility to report it, and you should report it. So there are certain secrets that should not be kept. The child is in danger, another vulnerable adult may be in danger, and it is your responsibility to report it. So 914 number, the police, and any probation officer, according to law.
Thank you, Ms. Hayward. I hope that you guys are making note of that, of the resources and the content that you have to make, because for a country with a very high sexual assault rate, the reporting is very low. So we definitely need to do something about that. Now I will just open the floor to questions, just about two or three questions from the audience. Yes.
My name is Shulawal, and this question is directed to anyone in the panel or anyone that would like to answer. So, as a youth from Berbice, we don't have any youth that are involved in organizations. First, we don't have much organizations out there. Most of us have to travel to Georgetown or wherever else to attend events like this, right? So back home, we're trying our best to connect with youth. But how do I address youth who want to be involved in such activities for the visibility and not the impact? How do I change their minds? Because at the end of the day, we still need them to create change.
Thank you very much for your question. That's an interesting thing, and I don't know if I have the answer. As the coordinator for policy for Guyana, it is something that we are constantly dealing with. You have a lot of persons coming and volunteering for CVs. You know, they just want to put on their CV that they're a volunteer here, a volunteer there, or they just want to attend something international to the country. So it's really difficult to navigate, but what I think has worked a bit for Policy Forum is to weed it out. I know you're saying that you need these type of people. You don't. I've been running Policy Forum since 2017. You don't. It's nice to have a big group, but it's efficient and effective to have a group of 2 people or 3 people that are actually working, that are actually there because they're passionate about the cause. So it makes no sense having 40 people on the list to say, oh, I have a big group and it's 40 people, when it actually comes to going into the communities, when it comes to getting down and dirty, having sessions with youths, only one person can call, only 2 people show up, and the rest of them come and they line in a corner, and they take the pictures and they take the thing, and then they don't do anything. You're still struggling on your own. So that is my advice to you. It's very hard, but I think there's a space for them and it's outside of your organization. They can reshare your posts. They don't need to be in the post. That's my advice.
Question, what's the nature of the organization you're currently trying to, is it environmental or?
So one, I'm a coordinator for Women Empowerment Group International Group, and we're trying to empower people on several topics. And the other one is the Mangrove Connection, which is focused on environmental and social issues and using art and cultural as well.
Okay, so you're currently experiencing a lack of numbers, but a lot of times the person that come are persons with ulterior motives. Okay. So oftentimes the organization needs. So if you what would say Rotaract, copy their rules. Okay? If you come for your visibility, you have to pay the dues, you have to be a part of the organization in an effective manner. So if you want to post, because even with CYN, with ISS, we have to recently actually weed out some persons also. But if you're already starting from a disadvantage of numbers, you kind of need them, right? You kind of need them. But what you can do is ensure they work. So, and over time, I think some There's some that mental care for disability, but it's just a line to work, and they change over time. So people don't change, right? And that is fine. But for now, it seems young, right? It seems.
Yes, so the issue, another part of the issue is that people are trying to give them awareness about these things. Like I said, in Maurice, in the rural area.
Yeah, so continue to try, but have rules and be strict with your rules. Now, if you're going to be part of an organization, you have to at least their quarterly meetings or monthly meetings, you have to actively be a part of our projects and so on. But don't do it in such a way it seems as though you're being cliquish. I think oftentimes the organization can seem as cliques. And you're trying to effectively have them be a part. So what I tried to do, I tried to do trainings with persons, and I tried to do quarterly trainings with CYN, and even with RCC, we also try to ensure persons are a part of almost every event. So you bring them having a part, and of course in visibility, but ensure they're actively being a part and participate. If they're not, and when this year ends, they still have to change, then we will give them a chance and see if they can change and actually show that they care. Because over time they might end up caring about the managers, caring about the important when they see how it truly affects them and the community at large. Because I find that a lot of these things are centralized, especially on region 4, maybe region 2, region 3, but region 6 and 5, region 5, I think people just drive through region 5, just forget alright? And these youths are accustomed to having these movements, so they have a chance, but you have a timeline in your head, then we go and see how they operate, and after that, then you can give them a chance.
No. But in addition to what Sophie said, I would say that you can also invite us all. So policy for me and the organization I work for is also very open to coming up to those regions, meeting with those persons and providing that training free of cost.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that might help them as well. So they're not just seeing you, but they're seeing that persons outside of the region, outside of the community, are actually interested in what they're doing and they're to assist them.
Yeah, call UNICEF, call RSCC, call everybody. Right, go back. Maybe that will ignite them to see this is serious. Yeah. This is serious, you know. Yeah, it's hard, but it can work.
I would like to spin it off a bit differently. Is this working? Alright, so I think sometimes it takes a while to find your niche, right? And sometimes they're there, but they don't know what they want to do. So they're just occupying space until they actually can groove in. So sometimes it's hard for them to actually function in the capacity that you might want them to function in. And it might take them some time to develop and actually say, hey, I actually like what I'm into. Some of them might say, no, this is not what I want. I want to go into political. I want to be political. I want to be a debater. I want to advocate for the rights of women instead of advocating for the rights of children. So it might be different for some people, and it do take time for them to actually develop that. So
your leadership comes into that.
Yes, since we're Mr. King here, you can hear me? Yes, and when it comes to mental health, something I've been trying to work on is bridging the gap between our generation and the old generation, because as much as we would love to say, okay, you need to find space and you need to heal, half these people kind of up and move away from the root causes of their mental health issues. So how would you say we can advise some youth to bridge the gap between them and their parents when it comes to mental health? Or like just saying, hey, I'm depressed and I'm lazy. I know.
Alright, so that's an excellent question because it is something that affects every young person. Because as a young person, you would always hear that, oh, you're depressed. You just probably sad, or is it phone, is it your friend, is it school? And to be very honest, there's so many things that affect us that our parents, they do not see because it's taboo to them. When they were young, it's a different generation. Our generation is starting to have more feelings. We're more expressive, about what affects us. Back then, they didn't have the opportunity to express. So for them now, it's different. When they see us having these feelings and wanting to express our emotions, it's difficult for them to actually understand what we're going through. It's difficult for them to actually say, hey, I know you're going through this, and maybe you can take some time off. No, they You sad, go wash beers. You sad, go clean the yard. Like, do this, read a book. They're gonna try to get you to do stuff even though you're not in the mood to do it. So bridging that gap is very difficult, but I think something that is very important would be awareness and educating the older generation on, you know, what the new generation, or what we want to say the Gen Zs or the Gen X is actually going through, because we are different. We are different from them. And what we go through is different because back then, they didn't have much of climate change happening. Back then, they didn't have social media. They didn't have much bullying. I mean, they had their own stuff happening, but it wasn't as extreme as it is happening right now. So it's affecting us on a much larger scale than they can understand.
We have a question.
Thank you for your responses, and the appearance of a teenager is also creating awareness and increasing my own awareness on mental health and the challenges that my children may face with the changes that they're experiencing. I'm curious, switching gears a little bit, about how you view the solid waste situation. And this may be for you, Sufeid and you, Benita. And the role young people can play not just in advocacy, but to influence behavior change. Knowing that this has a direct link to environmental sustainability, if you have any suggestions for the organizations that we have represented here for innovative ways that they can program their resources and their energies, that will be very helpful, because we have to agree and admit that we have a solid waste challenge.
Okay, so I work, as I said, I work for EPA. I don't really like to talk about my work because y'all like to bash EPA, and y'all ain't bashing me. But I work with the communication and education aspect. And so we're currently launching this Not.Yup campaign because we're trying to figure out what exactly is going on.
Because oftentimes, especially election time, I'm talking about the elephant in the room, Guyanese fight for them. They fight and they have these discussions. And one of the best depictions of Guyanese to me, and to show how weird sometimes it is they had nomination day. All the parties were there. But I said to my group, and Chandani is here, she can say I said in the group, I said, no matter their political differences, I guarantee you that the entire place will be littered with garbage after they're gone. That's one thing all of them had in common. And what happened? The entire place was littered with garbage. But persons went on Facebook, they spoke about it, and it was cleaned very quickly. And to me, that is the issue in Guyana. We are very reactive. We are very reactive. If you know there's going to be persons there, where were the bins? Why was there so much plastic in the first place? Where were the receptacles? Where were persons to ensure that that place was left clean and not littered and then clean? Because really and truly half the bottles probably are already in the drain, all of this. And this is something you see throughout Guyana. Persons are littering their own environment. This is not something someone is coming and doing. We are polluting our own spaces. And it's always perplexing to me why we do it. But what I realize, or what over time I've seen, is that one, there's no shame to it. And there's no penalties to it. That is the issue that is missing. We need penalties and we need shame. And so what I recommend for a lot of young persons to do is to speak up. I've spoken up many times to persons and said, I remember I was traveling across the Amari for someone throw a bottle in there, it will disappear. I said, no, it's going to disappear. Listen to me. I think people really think it disappears. And so there's three things I recommend young people do. One, you speak up. Two, you do not litter. Alright? Because we want to ignore that young people don't litter too. Yes, they do. Even though, what is the very famous saying? You know better, you? Exactly, we need to know what to do better. And three, we need, and this is, I'm not trying to stop at anybody, but we need a collective movement. I think youth organizations, CYN has the POMA project, which is marine litter prevention. But litter prevention in general, we need a collective group, a partnership geared towards this. I think it's an issue that young people can't spark a change in. Funny enough, many studies have shown that most older persons, coming out of intergenerational knowledge sharing, learn about environmental issues from who? Their children, the youth, their grandchildren learn about it from there. So this is something, that's like Andrew just said, mental health is a very sticky topic. They can't debate you when it comes to littering. Because wrong is wrong. They can't tell you, no, I could always inside the rivers. That's one thing I think I have in my family, since I was small, always did not like the aspect of Guyana. But what I want to say is an issue in Guyana that requires a multi-sectoral approach, and one of that sectors involves NGOs and civil society. And a lot of young people volunteer in NGOs and civil society, and I think it's our chance now to show that the institutional fragmentation that occurs in the ministries and occurs in the government does not need to affect how we approach this situation. We don't need to be fragmented, right? If we as young people want to be a part of the change of solid waste management in Guyana, if we want a clean and healthy environment, we can, but we need to partner. We really need to partner. I've tried it before, but oftentimes persons are busy. Persons oftentimes have ulterior motives, as you will recognize. But what I want to say is that you within yourself can't advocate for it. You within yourself can't ensure you do not do it. And we need to partner for that. And also, the persons who have the Litter Prevention Act under the dismay and within your agencies need to enforce it. My husband's family went to Barbados, and they would tell you that the penalties there for littering, you wouldn't even think about dropping a sweetie paper on the ground. And that is what I think we're lacking. We need, regardless of whoever wins the next election, I really hope that we have that implementation there. Because if we continue to develop, our environment must reflect that. I want to walk out today and see a clean Georgetown. And the only way to do that is to have everybody across the sector be responsible. And as a citizen, what is your responsibility? That is what we have to ask. As a citizen, what is my responsibility? Because we know what they're supposed to do, but we are not doing what we're supposed to do oftentimes. All right? And report also. Report. That's how we're going to report other things. Report littering. Report dumping. Because that you have to hold persons accountable. And if you have evidence, we can definitely put persons under penalty for it. And do remember your laws, okay?
What about the people who are mentally?
That's an issue they find a lot, that persons, especially in the market, they use those persons to dump. And so, what approach we did in my agency, we stake out and we see who is using them. And so we don't go to them because they're just a medium in that situation. So oftentimes we go to the persons who are using them and we find them. Because remember guys, oftentimes in those areas, who is the person with the garbage? The vendors. So we go to them. Because you can't really and truly, they're just being used to a cheaper form of waste disposal.
The only two things I'll add in response is that, so for Policy Forum Guyana, we have a storybook that named Waste Plastic Predicament that deals directly with solid waste, because last year we had a project in collaboration with Sevons. So Sevons, most of you might not know, actually recycles plastic, scrap metals, and a few other things. So if you're able to separate your garbage, you can drop off at Sevons or call them and they will pick up from you as well. And once the garbage is separated and these stuff do get recycled, they sent to Brazil and they sent to somewhere in the US, I believe. The other thing I would say is Sufyan alluded to fining and so on. We do have a fine in the law, it's $50,000 Guyana. The issue is there's no enforcement. Guyana is corrupt and we all know this, and that is the issue with solid waste management. There's a lack of enforcement. Persons would go to the States, go to Barbados and do not do these things. Yeah. Guyana wasn't projected as a tourism country, so a lot of the laws aren't about beauty, but now you see ecotourism and tourism on the rise. So the issue with solid waste, I do believe, will be addressed. It will be, yes, it will definitely be addressed because persons, tourists visiting are complaining about it. As soon as you land in the airport, as soon as you drive on Heroes Highway down to your hotel or whatever, it's littered with garbage. So it's now on that global scale, so I do believe it will get addressed. But as a local person, as a youth and community, a mother with children, trying to change behaviors, I really think you need to help them to understand separation of garbage, composting, as well as stricter fines. And EPA needs to ban single-use plastics. That is something that needs to happen. EPA needs to ban single-use plastics.
Ban single-use plastic.
So in keeping with the theme, and considering where we are as a country in Guyana, what would you guys, what are some of the initiatives or ideas would you guys just suggest in terms of bridging that gap for marginalized groups, which is persons with disabilities, indigenous people, women?
Marginalized people with disabilities.
Yeah, in terms of bridging that gap with climate change, for example, natural disasters, social justice and inclusion, what would you guys see in terms of where we are now and how close, and what are some of the practical suggestions that you guys would suggest or reiterate to me in terms of going back and starting to work towards? And look, we know advocacy is a problem in terms of, there are many factors in terms of organizations and lack of funding. But what would you guys say to those young people who are afraid to speak up in terms of advocating? I know that's a big problem. Yes, as young people sometimes, we want to talk, but just we're afraid to speak because of consequences and stuff like that. But what would you say to those people who
in terms of your last question, what do we say? So, that's a great question. Being victimized is real. And the policy forum here at GHRA, a lot of the civil society groups are seeing that the civic space is shrinking in Guyana. Not just for youths, for adults who are advocates, persons who choose the line to be an advocate are being targeted. Not just Policy Forum Guyana did this, but Benita Davis of the Policy Forum Guyana is an enemy of progress. Or Soufrian Dash does not want development and these sort of things. So it's very scary in the advocacy space when you want to speak up. I know a lot of persons talk about being bold, but it's hard to be bold when you're constantly targeted and not seen as a youth, as a civil society advocate, and you're just pinpointed and singled out on these social media platforms. But there is confidence in numbers. So if you work together with other youth, with other organizations, if you have the backing of UNICEF, you have the backing of the Rights of the Child Commission, you have the backing of the US Embassy and all these other larger groups than yourself, you tend to be insulated. So even though they will target, they will attack, you're still protected and you have people behind you. It is scary, especially as it's coming up. They're trying to make a name for themselves, trying to set up their own careers, trying to protect their own families, because I'm going to be honest, victimization is real. They not just target you, they might target your sister, your brother, your cousin, your auntie, your mommy, all kind of things might be going on. So you need to have the backing of organizations if you're going to take the route of advocating, especially for things that might seem anti-government and stuff like that. The garbage situation is a real topical issue. The first question about how we're going to bridge marginalized communities. So we talk about banning single-use plastics and all these sort of things, but then we need to realize that some of these persons with disabilities need the plastic straws, and they need these plastic things rather than glass and bottle and metal because of some of the issues that they face to use certain things. So it doesn't mean that we need to advocate for them. We need to ensure that these persons are in the room to advocate for themselves. Because I can talk length and breadth about what it is to be disabled, and I'm not disabled. So the best approach is that when you have these sessions, it needs to be as inclusive as possible. So the people who are most affected, these marginalized communities, are represented there. So you have the indigenous people, you have the persons with disabilities, you have the youths and the children and the persons from the Rastafarian community. And I must commend UNICEF and RCC for this very diverse giving of the topic today. Because that's the only way we're going to address it. It's not just me standing up for you, but me empowering you to stand up for yourselves in these rooms.
Alright, so to the second aspect of the question, I don't see that youths are being victimized a lot. But what I can definitely say is that youths are more afraid of being tokenized. Because how it happens right now is that we're not given a real seat at the decision table. We're more given a tokenized seat where, the want you there for the photo op. They just want you there to show that, oh, we're inclusive, we have the youth. But are we actually there to give our inputs? Are our voices being heard? Are the inputs that we're making being noted? Are they being worked on? No. So that's a real issue that we're facing in comparison to being victimized. Yes, we know that you say something wrong, the social media will attack you. You do something wrong, everybody's out there to get you. Even the organizers sometimes they say, well, we can't invite you back because you said something that is in contrary to what we have going on for us. So we're more in a tokenistic society where, I'm not saying UNICEF, but organizations invite young people. They want our input, but they just want us here because they're going to have the UN General, they're going to have the President, and these pictures are going to go so viral that they just want to show that we have young people being present. So, yeah.
Alright, last thing, I know we have to wrap up. I recently was a part of UNESCO's meaningful participation of persons with disabilities. And it was a program myself and Gabriel guys, a person with physical disability in Guyana, attended. It was optional, so I opted to do it because as a youth leader, I think I have to equip myself with all of these various skills in order for me to reach all the marginalized persons who will definitely feel more of the brunt of climate change. When they have disasters, when we even have even a little things such as sea level rise, and we have we don't consider our disasters big disasters like flooding, but think about the persons with disabilities who have that already have that on them, and then they have to deal with the impacts of climate change. And those persons are oftentimes overlooked. So for me, I found it important to equip myself with that knowledge to be able to also give them meaningfully incorporate them into all of the plans that we have and I'm a part of. Because we can also look at the person with the Disability Rights Act we have in Guyana, we have that also. But we even in our discussions in that workshop, we found to be dated. And oftentimes we have these forums, we have these workshops, we have these even declarations we make. And because persons with disability are average, the last census did about 5% of the population, which we still don't know the accurate number. We find that persons are not equipped with how to actually meaningfully engage with them, as Andrew would have said. So I think meaningful engagement is lacking and training needs to be done on that. I was trained, I have a booklet I will share with all of you that talks about the different models of engagement and what to avoid. Oftentimes we go to charity model, like this person's a charity case and we just need to give them money. No. Oftentimes persons want to be, remember they're human beings also, and they want to be involved. They want to be a part of the scavenger hunts. They want to be a part of the poetry slams. They want to be seen as equal to you because they also have the right to that stage, and that is what is lacking also in Guyana. Persons are not aware of are blinded by stigma, I think, and that is something we need to remove. If we need to have meaningful participation and consideration, even when we think about the laws and even anything when it comes to action plans, disaster management plans, all of that comes into play when we think about persons with disabilities. And that can only be done if you are educated on that, coming back to that. So trainings and also allowing them to speak about themselves. Don't speak for them, but allow them to speak. Unless they they allow you to, give them the right to speak for themselves.
All right, so I have one question, just one question. It's very short. So I want us to think, right? What if the seawall is to break? Hold on. What if the sea level is to rise and the seawall is to break? What would happen to our differently able brothers and sisters? What policy are we working on? What is UNICEF doing? What is the government of Guyana doing to assist our differently able brothers and sisters in an event of crisis?
Well, I would definitely bring thoughtful question. So I do think that you all should ponder on that question. What would you, and not just what would UNICEF and the Rights of the Child Commission, but what would you do? Because at the end of the day, we're a community. So thank you for the questions from the audience. I would also like to thank the panelists for answering them very in-depth. Today we've heard about how young people can not only react to the challenges that we face, but how we can contribute to the solutions. We've heard about environmental issues, we've heard about child rights advocacy, we heard about youth empowerment, mental health awareness, and so I would like to thank you, panelists, for taking the time out from your day to be here to share your expertise and the passion that you're now here to share, and for the young people to now take at home. So I'd like for you to give a warm and a big thank you. And even thanking you, the audience, for being here. This shows that you are committed to making a change for the future. Now, before I move on, I'd like to say, I'd like to issue a call to action. Local action is global action. What you do in your school, your community, or your organization can ripple out and help achieve the sustainable development goals. I encourage you to take one idea from today and put it into practice this week. And I would just like to end by saying that, you know, there's a saying that youths are the future, but I would like to end and say youths are the present. Thank you.
We will now move into our breakout sessions. This is your opportunity to dive deeper into the SDGs through hands-on discussions and activities. Each workshop will feature a local success story, a group challenge, and action recommendations. Now this is the part where you need to pay attention because you will have to choose your group. And you want to be in one where you can share your ideas. All right? Are you listening? Can I get an aye? Aye. Great. All right, so here are your options. Youth for Healthy Communities, that is SDG 3. This is led by representatives from UNFPA, Ms. Mandy LaFleur. PAHO, this is Dr. Susan Six, thank you, and health advocate Andrew King. All right, that's group 1. Group 2, inclusive and equitable education for all. This is concerning SDG 4. This is facilitated by Ms. Joelle Cross. Group 3, gender equality starts here. This is SDG 5, hosted by here. Okay. All right. So we'll scrap that. We will have group 3 instead will be safe water, clean energy, and a livable planet. This is SDGs 6, 7, and 13 with facilitators Subain and Shani. And lastly, group 4, just, equal, and sustainable communities. This is in regard to SDGs 10, 12, 16, and 17, led by UNDP, Ms. Sarita Marshall. So please proceed to your chosen workshop space. And remember, this is your chance to share ideas and collaborate on solutions. This is where you're networking, guys.
Health and well-being and gender-based equality. All right, so we'll be starting off with simple and a little what do we call it, a cross take, a little demonstration, right?
Hey Andrew, can we talk about something?
Hey, sure, go ahead.
So my mom's already going back to work.
Hi, it's Joanna. Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing here?
We're just talking about what? We nothing.
All right. What do we got?
Yeah, so you just going really well.
She's doing good.
Yeah.
All right. We'll take the leave now, right?
You going home now?
Yeah.
I meet you outside.
All right. Whatever I say, wait a minute.
So what do you want to talk about?
That's one of my mom's friends, but don't worry about it. It's not important.
Why?
Go ahead, share.
Because I kind of need to go to the hospital where people have my name.
You're afraid of the officers and nurses?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they have my name.
So you're afraid that you're going to steal your confidential information?
Yeah, and like, I don't know, go anyway.
Alright. Well, we'll talk another time.
So what we did, we tried to weigh in more on the discussion of reproductive health, especially among teenagers, specifically teenage pregnancy, along with mental health issues. So,
we know you're not. It's a doctor, right?
Alright, so as we know, when it comes to these cases, especially gender-based equality in mental health, there's a lot of challenges between youths and adults in terms of, being able to talk about certain things, to deal with their mental health, and to at least, express how they feel and manage these challenges. So, one of the main things that we want to focus on, or we did focus on, would be the advocate and collaboration for the prevention and education. As you know, there's a big thing. So one of the major issues or challenges that there's a lack of education about these issues among youths and even our adults in particular, right? And what we need, basically what we need to advocate for generally, right, is to ensure that, the knowledge is out there, not just solely for your benefit, but for also persons who can, talk to you. Because in many cases, we know persons are experiencing many challenges, they're suffering from abuses, and most times they're afraid to talk up. But if they talk up to somebody, you must be able to be knowledgeable and equipped to at least internalize and deal with it, right, and to further escalate it to the relevant authorities.
Right. So one of the things, sexual violence really affects both your physical and your mental health. So one of the main challenges is the lack of confidentiality. And solutions would be propose a penalty for disclosing a client's medical information, ensure training on legal aspects, routine checks by elected bodies, challenge with the trained individuals integrating in communities. Perpetrators should be penalized and the law should be enforced. Continuous mental health support for those survivors. And there should be mandatory reporting for under 16, which is one of the statutory rape. Education on the rights for the victim. And if someone's capacity is affected emotionally, there can be a vicious cycle of the act being continued and this should be reported. So victims do have rights. And also we wanted to speak about personal space. When the act was being done, the perpetrator and the victim, as I don't know if you guys saw, but the perpetrator was actually invading the victim's personal space by hugging her, rubbing her back. That's something that we should be on the lookout for too, because invading people's personal space could really affect you, because a lot of people do not like that. So that's just something to keep in mind with.
Alright, so many of us know what it is when we speak of lack of confidentiality, right? And we know how sometimes that can be a big issue, especially within the healthcare system. Yeah? Alright, great. So, in terms of lack of confidentiality, we often are placed in a position where we might share a very important information with a healthcare worker, and then few days after, even hours after, you're hearing about it from other persons. And oftentimes that victim somehow feels small. It can also not just affect their mental health, causing them to, be uncomfortable, but like she mentioned earlier, it also weighed in on them physically, because I mean, you'll have to deal with depression, anxiety, and sometimes it leads to suicide, right? So that is just a little brief synopsis of what it is when we mean lack of confidentiality, particular in the healthcare system. And like she further stated that we have like penalties, to have ensured penalties are placed, are enforced. And one of the major things that we want to touch on is education, right? So even though in the healthcare system and in many others, persons are being taught about these, right? We also need to understand that routine checks and routine education is very vital, because I mean, you might learn it today and you forget tomorrow, right?
Alright, so as we go, the final thing that we want to touch on is how many of you know your rights as young people when it comes to your sexual health? Alright, so do you know that the laws of Guyana provide that persons below the age of 16, persons below the age of 18 can actually seek sexual medical advice without your parents being involved? How many of you know that? None of you. No. Alright, so the laws of Guyana under the Sexual and Reproductive Health Act actually provides for females and males, in some instances, you can actually go to the clinic to get an abortion, you can actually go to get contraceptives, you can actually go and get medical advice on or at any clinics, and the doctors are not obligated to call your parents and say, hey, we have 16-year-old Shanae here trying to do an abortion. That's actually a breach of their oath. They're supposed to provide you that service and just allow you to go. Because once you show up, it proves that you are really competent and you have the capacity to make that decision on your own. Thank you guys for listening.
Just a critical moment in what he said. The laws allow for under 16 to access services, but there's a lot of work that has to be done. The health providers is encouraged to support the client to disclose, maybe not to the parent, maybe to a significant other. However, if the young adult or the young person decides, I don't want to do that, then there are a set of things that has to be done. The Gillette competency is that has to be, the person has to go through those tests, and if they're deemed competent, and you said that, then you can proceed. But they're encouraged as far as possible to disclose. All right, everybody? So give them a cheer. I think it was well done. Over to Master.
So our group was tasked with dealing with the SDG that talks about inclusive and equitable distribution of education. And the first thing that we would have discussed was what is inclusive, equitable education. And the first set of things that should come to mind.
My group speaks about energy and reliable energy. This is non-reliable energy.
Alright, give him a chance.
Alright, I think it's pretty quiet, he can project. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is real unfair. Anyways, it's GPL, right? We just under this.
Go ahead, yes.
So when we talk about the definition of inclusive and equitable, we should be thinking about words like accommodation, accessibility, right? Those are very important. Integration, right? And those are the things that this SDG is talking about. What are some of the progress that we have been making so far, and what are some of the things that we need to do? So for example, when we talk about accommodation, it's a big problem still, all right? Even certain schools, certain buildings, they're still not accessible. Exams are not being delivered in an accessible form, right? Accessibility. The other aspect that I want to talk about in terms of time would be barriers, right? Of course, the barriers, there are many. And one of the big barriers that we have had, and I know while we have managed to bridge that barrier to an extent, there are still loopholes in it, in the sense of how do we bridge that barrier between students in the hinterland and students on the coast, right? Of course, you know, indigenous students, students with disabilities, young women and girls, in those areas, there are still barriers, for example, the technological gap, right? There are still communities in the hinterland that still depends on, you know, you got going on some, tree top or some hill top, right? To get access to technology, but there are progress being done. So we have come a far way in terms of that barrier. Then we talk about transportation, right? Transportation for children with disabilities. I know I work in special education and I have students who is blind and visually impaired and has a physical disability, and she can't come to school because there is no proper transportation system in place to accommodate her learning needs in tongue, which can best provide for her needs, right? And where she is located, there's still that issue in terms of trained classrooms, resources, and stuff like that. So that's a big gap that we still have to reach, right? Likewise, I know it's the same in the hinterland. Students have to travel miles and miles to get to school, right? And then we talk about accessibility again. Access to buildings, classrooms, right? It's something that still exists in schools, right? And then we talk about poverty. Poverty is still a big one. Yeah, we get the cash grants, right? But we know all kind of thing is being done with the money sometimes, right? So there still need to be a way of dealing with that type of challenge in terms of the socioeconomic gap, and that being a big barrier, right? And then we have training, we have resources, all of these things. Yes, there are improvements. Right? Yes, there are improvements in terms of those areas. We have come a far way, but it's still a concern, it's still a barrier. Well, one of the things that we continue to lobby for, it's a barrier, is the lack of the special education policy. We continue to call on the government and the policy members for the enforcement of the special needs policy. And this will deal with inclusive education and, of course, equitable education and how to allocate and distribute. Now, in terms of selecting one of our issues, one of the barriers, definitely it would be access to education. And access that goes across the board, like I said, buildings. So the solution that we would call for, that we propose, and that we hope that by the end of these sustainable goals is to have all buildings accessible and being retrofitted with ramps, school buildings, right? Now, this is a basic right. Education is a fundamental right. And while there are buildings being built, school buildings, we need them to be equipped. We need them to have the space. We need them to have the ramp facilities. We need them to have washroom facilities, classrooms that are equipped and accessible, classrooms that have the relevant technology to cater for all types of students, not just students with disabilities. But of course, we know we have students that are, they have different backgrounds in terms of their languages, indigenous students, right? And then we come to what are some of the local things that we can do on the ground, some of our action ideas. Definitely, like I was telling the group, self-advocate. We ain't got any money, we ain't got to build no organization. But listen, you're in a space, you see a problem, talk about it, try to be helpful. If you're a teacher, try to cater for the students of that is in your care, right? Then we come to, obviously, using social media and being able to lobby or advocate. You want to be responsible at the end of the day. You don't want to attack anybody and to be held liable. But if you see something wrong in the system, post about it, make a comment, right? Be responsible. Then we talk about, of course, the other aspect would be the activities, right? Being a part of groups, organizations. Form your own organization, right? You don't have to depend on no organization or no group. If you have the vision, you have the idea, form your own organization, and of course you guys can make your contributions through those means. So we have a description here. I guess the group is short, but that's my part.
as we saw just now, we are in SDG 7 speaks about clean, reliable energy, and water speaks about clean water and sanitation, and climate action speaks about actions for adaptation and mitigation against climate change. So, who the persons we nominated to speak? Okay. So you can start and then you can go ahead. So they designed a brighter future for Guyana, and then they also have some ideas to pitch to you for us to achieve some of these things when it comes to these 3 SDGs. So I'll let them begin. Go ahead.
Okay, so first off we'll go with water. So my group, some issues that we have highlighted is contaminated water. But how does it get contaminated? By littering, then there's a buildup of garbage, then potentially that garbage will, So stay in the water. So there's contaminated water, and that's caused by littering and garbage. And then potentially from the garbage, it will breed mosquitoes. And then that also contributes to the dengue virus and so on that's happening there. So that's also a big issue. And in ways we decided to tackle these things, first we can collect rainwater. That is a sustainable practice. Additional to that, we can have garbage bins in the community be implemented. Also the NDC, they can have the tractors visiting the community more than once. Because, well, where I live, the NDC only have the tractors going one time a week. But sometimes in the garbage now, it's full up the whole bit. What are you gonna do? Well, as one of my colleagues said, compress the garbage, push it on the barrel, and see how it will fit on the top of it. As well, the NDC, they could ensure the safe workers are doing their job. Because yes, they are safe workers, but you're sure if they're going out and they clean the dress, or if they're going and leave the mango tree and sit down and breathe out and not kind of clean the dress and so on. They could also bring about awareness, like it starts from the schools as well, you know, and these children come home, they can able to share with parents and start these practices. They could have the insect repellent nettings. Not just the spray, but the nettings. That's, I think, a good initiative to tackle that. Coming up with climate change, so we have the drainage systems being a problem, the sun heat, and the blackout. Some of my colleagues, as you can tell, they're pupils, and they have reported that the blackouts there, they can't do the homework. Yeah. So I know back then, well, I mean, I am young, but at some point in time, we had these little lamps are the candles, but now, as time goes by, we have the solar energy, so they can have more solar panels, if the government can donate more into the communities and so on. Well, again, my colleague, they said the government can donate solar funds. That's the sun heat. And the drainage system, okay, again, the drainage is a problem. I think you highlighted about something's wrong with seawall, there's flooding, and what can be done. Definitely, plant trees, but specifically plant more mangroves and the corridor as well. That will help to tackle the situation. Have water filter system. I know in some of the indigenous areas, they don't really have the facility for these things. So I would say, specifically to Guyana, they could probably boil the water or use some chlorine in the water as well to tackle that issue. And lastly, livable planet. So everyone here, I know that we go back here and get time to go in the garden and plant nothing. We go to the supermarket, grab a couple thin stuff, come home, fry this, then we don't complain, I sick. And you don't realize that it's what you're doing to yourself. To tackle that, I know it's difficult, but we can go back to some of the traditional ways and, get into more sustainable practices, like I said, collect rainwater, even compost. Cooking and so on, take the onion skins, take all of these things, farm a compost with them. You can put them back right in the garden if you don't have all the space. You can even get a little pot and put
Alright, so first, I'd like to say we decided to move the capital city to higher ground, so we're on the coast. And our sustainable city for water, we would implement a mixed distribution system. So we already have like the central sanitization systems where we all get water access from. So we have centralized systems, but we also have standalone, as the other group mentioned, implementing sort of like distribution of water tanks so that people can have access to portable water and sanitize it themselves. Maybe even having the government take on the responsibility of also distributing filtration systems, filtration equipment as well. For the energy part of it, we thought about implementing a mixed system as well. So we go with solar, hydro, and wind. So that will be implemented for energy in our sustainable city. And we're looking at, for a livable planet, we're looking at like a circular economy. So we're tackling waste management and also waste disposal. We would implement methods such as recycling, repurposing, and reusing of waste, whether it be plastic, repurposing or recycling those. If it's your waste that you can do composting with for farming and so on. So those are some of the things that we would implement. And when we think about issues such as like e-waste, maybe you have a phone, it doesn't work anymore, you just want to throw away the phone. And so instead of just throwing away the phone, we can actually reuse parts or refurbish it, whatever we can to minimize the disposal or the disposal of waste that is. So we're adding to the life cycle of whatever we produce. So from plastic to any sort of item. So that's what we would implement. I don't know if you have anything to add.
So this is the city, but in the city, they design something. Engineers here, you understand me? UNICEF look up, we have some green engineers. Think about scholarship here. All right, so go ahead.
As we all know, in Guyana, the water is not really clean. So here's a system that we as a group created. This is a water wheel, right? So the nasty from water is spin in this water wheel using these stuff. The water is going to go into this container, and all the garbage and stuff is going to settle here. This part here is a filter area that can be changed. When the water is filtered, it goes through here, and you could go to different pipes that could be sent to different housing.
Okay. So you have an eco wheel, you write it down. Don't change it. Pack something here.
Eco wheel 1.
Eco wheel 1. And eco wheel 2.
Yeah, eco wheel 2. This is the water, right? It's getting spent in the water wheel again, but this time it's going to a generator, and the generator is going to power it. We're going to put, the idea is to put both water wheels into this ocean, since we mostly struggle with high sea levels, and we have to do something with the water.
So your hydropower. Then there's something else. You have more. Another hope you almost finished. Go ahead.
This is the third idea. Solar garbage compressor. This works with a solar panel that is connected to a compressor. This, like when we have like issues where the garbage is overfull and we need to do something with the garbage, you can put our garbage in here. This is going to power it, and it's going to pressure and squish into this square. This is the exit. This square can be reused and sent to different companies.
Like with the recycling refurbishing company.
Yes.
One. Give her a sheet.
I want to speak about how we created this, because normally I was looking at it and want to know what we did. But actually this part is was when people came out and they did throwing garbage all over, littering all over the place. And until we speak about it to the law, is when they confirm it them and they start to change and they start to improve this better than throwing the garbage into the bin, than rather throwing it on the roadside and making it polluted here and so. So actually, this is like what everyone is doing. Normally when they eat a snack and they go in the bus, they just fling it through the door or just dash it through the window or something. The same goes to, same to me, because I do it.
Yes.
invite, like, teach out more, but like, do not do that anymore because it's causing a lot of damage to the environment. And because that is wrong things, and if you continue doing it, you can cause people to sickness because they're going to pollute and it's going to be everywhere. People could actually die of that and they could get sick. And
young people. They have more than there's a very big group. Thank you so much.
So our group will be focusing on SDG 10, 12, 16, and 17.
As you can see here, it's about strengthening partnership. I would say, in order to strengthen partnership, you do need all the SDGs. You need to reduce inequalities, you need responsibility, and you need to ensure peace. Therefore, also, overall, you need trust. You need trust in not only the government, you need trust in your partners, and you need trust in the peers around you. So, in order for us to promote partnership and strengthen partnership, we need to join and trust each other and be able to trust one another. So I would say, for you to strengthen partnership, you need to start with people around you. Know people around you and be friends and be peaceful. Don't discriminate around people around you. And from there, you can find partnership with different groups, partnership with different organizations in order to strengthen not only partnership around people around you, but partnership around countries and different nations around the world. So, in our discussion with ensuring peace, we had a discussion saying, how would you ensure peace around your nation? Some people said by talking, how would you go about talking to somebody who's next to you? First they said, oh, you go introduce yourself, introduce your name, introduce who you are and where you're from. So we said, as we went into how will you ensure peace with one another? By firstly, not looking at people's inequalities, respecting them, treat them as your equal, and treat them as one of your own. Not only people that have disabilities, people who are disabled, people who don't have the same intellectual capacity as you, but treat everyone as your same. A child to be your equal. Therefore, we need peace in order to not only keep up a goal of each one of the SDGs, but also keep us safe as a whole. Young people are increasingly at the forefront of climate justice movement. In Guyana, where youth constitutes a significant portion of the population, it is essential to empower them as agents of change in addressing climate-related challenges. With the country's unique ecological vulnerabilities ranging from rising sea levels to biodiversity loss, climate action must include voices, creativity, and leadership of young people. The creation of United for RGY responds to this need by offering a youth-led, solutions-oriented platform grounded in the principles of environmental justice, sustainability, and child rights. So the name explanation, United for RGY, is both symbolic, strategic. Each element was intentionally selected to reflect the group's purpose and that aligns with UNICEF's mission. United for Earth, united, a fusion of youth and united, signifying the unity of young people across Guyana and beyond. A nod to the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, UNCRC, reinforcing our alignment with international child rights frameworks. Connection to UNICEF, a unifying force for children's welfare. For Earth. The 4 is both numerical and symbolic, representing for Earth, our shared commitment to protect and preserve the planet. The 4 pillars of sustainability, environment, economy, and equity, and education. GY, a national marker representing Guyana, anchoring our global mission in local context. Together, United for RGY communicates that we are Youths United for the Earth in Guyana, with the support of UNICEF and guided by the Global Child Rights Agenda. The logo description. The logo for United for Earth is written, the logo for United for Earth is a representation of youth-led unity, climate action, and hope for a sustainable future. Every element speaks to the vibrancy, innovation, and compassion of young people and advocating for the earth. Typography. The name United for RGY is written in a clean Poppins font that reflects clarity, forward-thinking, and youthful energy. The play on the words united merges youth and united, capturing the spirit of young people coming together in action. The color palette, UNICEF blue. The significant shade of the blue symbolizes trust, peace, and protection. It reflects our ongoing partnership with UNICEF and represents the voices of children and youth, the most vulnerable to climate change, yet also the most powerful agents of change. This blue centers around children in our environmental mission. The green. The green represents nature, growth, sustainability, and renewal, which is core to our vision of an eco-conscious future. Neutral tones, the hand. The use of warm human skin tones in the hand graphic grounds the logo in community, empathy, which is core to our vision of eco-conscious future. The iconography, the light bulb with the leaf. Positioned above the text, the light bulb features a vibrant green leaf in place of the filament, symbolizing youth-led innovation, fresh ideas, and sustainable solutions for climate crisis. The hand nurturing the plant. This symbolizes care, responsibility, and intergenerational stewardship as young people take the lead in cultivating a healthier planet. The framing of the elements, subtle flowing curves in the blue and green surrounding the design, mimicking the movement of water, land. These wave-like edges also represent inclusion, harmony, and fluid collaboration across regions and backgrounds. The 4 in art carries layered meaning. It signifies for art, reinforcing the mission of protection and preservation. It reflects the 4 pillars of sustainability: economy, economy, equity, and education. Now we move on to the vision statement. A generation of empowered youth leading climate action and sustainability. Efforts in Guyana and in influencing global environmental justice. The mission statement. To mobilize, educate, and equip young people in Guyana to champion climate action, promoting sustainability, and advocate for environmental justice through innovative projects, partnerships, and peer-led initiatives. The target group are primarily youth from all across Guyana, from all regions 1 to 10. The secondary will be the educators, which is our teachers, community leaders, policymakers, and international partners. And since this is a launch, y'all are privileged to be the first youth that will be joining United for RGY.
Very excited to talk to you all about this today. It's something that I was thinking about, and I'm glad someone took initiative, thank you, Sinead, to start this program and project, and I hope all of you today are interested and you join, even if it's something like to help in some of our projects by lifting a chair or two. Anything counts. Anyway, today I'll talk about the climate change and its effects. I think we all hear about climate change all the time. Everybody always saying climate change this, climate change that. Yeah, climate change. What's climate change? And it sounds boring, honestly. A lot of times tell you, oh, PSPs, this, chlorofluorocarbons. I mean, you don't really want to hear about that. But the loss of a species, increased occurrence of natural disasters, displacement, increasing difficulties conducting agriculture, they all affect us daily in our lives. If these things are not addressed right now, what's going to happen in 30 years? We're all going to be in a difficult position. We don't have food. We don't have a place to live. We have a hurricane every other week. We can't live like this. When displacement occurs, which is something I see happening a lot in Ghana, let's say we have a flood. People's houses are flooded out. Where do they go? They all look for a shelter somewhere. Their children are displaced. Their entire families are uprooted. And in environments where there's no stability, a lot of times there's an increase in crime,
people are stressed, they're hungry. It's a difficult position. Under the mental duress, it's very difficult to continue living as normal. And this is something we've seen in Guyana. If you remember the flood, it was before me, maybe, but I remember it. Before me, okay. The 2005 flood was before me. Okay. And 23 million people worldwide every year are displaced. And I think that in Guyana, because this one specifically, we don't really get that many natural disasters, but displacement is something that happens a lot, especially in Georgetown and low-lying areas. Also in rural areas, they flood us a lot, like in savannas, and then you can't move between the villages, you gotta get a boat, or you can't move. There's no food moving between. It's very difficult. And so through this project, I just like to enlighten everybody about the issues that we're facing locally, especially locally, worldwide, but we have to start small. And once somebody has an idea and some form of initiative, we can really make a difference. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope you sign up after this. Follow our Instagram.
All right, so Sinead took you through the logo expressing what we do. So we know why climate change. Sinead took you through a bit of why the purpose of why it was created, the other vision and the goals, objectives, awareness and education, youth empowerment and advocacy, community action projects, and partnerships are always welcome. Now guys, any group has structure. Well, this might bore you a bit, but listen. Any group you are in needs to have a structure, and we're working on that for you for Earth. As you join, we'll have elections, we'll have roles, and we'll have an intern run for which various parts you want to do. I believe in youth-led organizations. So we have, think about it, what you would like to be as a chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary, communication lead, project coordinator, and also I would add to that volunteer coordinator, right? So remember the general membership overall. So think of leadership roles for yourselves, right? Good. Now, why should you care? I want you to remember that young people comprise most of Guyana's population, and hence so, even when you think of statistics, you will spend the longest time here within Guyana. So you need to be a part of organizations like Youth for Earth that allow you to have effective projects and change and develop your skills in order to live in the climate change-induced future you will have. And one thing I want you to remember, you are vulnerable, right? Different degrees of vulnerability depending on your family's societal status, depending on your physical ability, but just know their long-term impact affects you. Most young people are on the first job but don't have a job. You don't have no money, right? So climate change can severely affect you, because if climate change comes, floods, droughts, and all these things come, food insecurity occurs, you cannot buy KFC. What are you going to do? You can't afford a single box. That's not funny, I think, but it could be worse than that, okay? Alright. You talk about your quality of life and your cost of living can go up. And it will go up really and truly with climate change, because food becomes scarce. Think about that as a young person who already has economic vulnerability on your side because of jobs. And then you have a role, but I want you to repeat after me. All roles are important. All roles are important. Every single role you play is important. You have to understand this. Like when you're in organizations, please understand this. From the volunteer to the vice chairperson to the secretary to the treasurer to anybody, all of your roles are important. Nobody's above one another. There are things that certain roles have to do, but everybody's important to this journey, right? So remember that for Youth for Earth, GY. Now, and you might want to know some of the things you want to do. Why should they have this conversation with me? Based on my experience, there's a lot of things I want to do, but I really wanted the group, aside from the Community Environment Network, we have our summer presides over us and gives us specific things we have to focus on. But for Youth for Earth, I want you as young to bring your creativity. I'm thinking about things like competition, poetry competitions, painting competition, things to really bring the visual arts together and really talk about climate action. I'm talking about outreaches. We were speaking about Verbies not having much of that region. 5, let's go these places. In spell environment wrong, oh my god, sorry. Always here, those pictures, right? Environmentally centered activities, we're talking about walks, tree planting, projects. A lot of people doing books now. We can do short films. I have seen some of the most beautiful 45-minute documentaries about different things. I know what's missing, documentaries about Guyanese are going through. Documentaries about those farmers that are losing crops by acres because of rainfall in August when they plant the dry food for August. I want us to really, I think, film and documentaries, short ones, because you got TikTok now, you got to stop for your TikTok. Like 50-piece TikToks. Part 1, part 2, part 3.